What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that the allergies are not getting to you because, my goodness, what is in the air right now is just attacking my face. I feel great. All right, I've had a number of people tell me on phone calls so far this week, like, dude, are you all right? You sound terrible. I know I sound terrible. My nose is all stopped up, but I mean, I could run a mile right now. I'm not going to do that because I don't think any of us, want to be a part of that. But I feel great. It's just I sound despicable. It's a really strange thing that's happening in the air right now. But if you have some sort of like, I don't know, meteorological, there we go, explanation for it, hit me up. I'm on X, Instagram, and Threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, rj.ochoa. Email is rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. I'm also live right now, this very second, in the Bleacher Report app, where I am live every single Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. That is and has been the routine for all of 2025. I'll also be live with you after every Dallas Cowboys game later on this season. You can also access these live streams, these live shows after the fact on demand in the BR app or on the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel. Shout out to our BTBers. Make sure you like the video and subscribe. Today is the third day, Thursday, March the 20th, 2025. I'm certain that your bracket is busted because no matter how cool they may be, you did not have McNeese State destroying Clemson the way that they did. But hey, it's a magical, fun, amazing, perfect time of year. The sports continue to roll on with the tournament beginning. Baseball's opening day is a week away. I know the Tokyo series happened, but we've also got NFL stuff happening. And the last video I did, the last discussion I had, whether it was in the BR app or on YouTube, I even wrote this massive article about it over at bloggingtheboys.com, where you have Dallas Cowboys coverage and analysis available 24/7, 365. Last topic I kind of discussed or did any sort of material on was the offseason that has been for the Cowboys and free agency. And I don't like speaking on behalf of an entire fan base or on behalf of an entire collective in any, real sense. And I did this at the risk of violating my own rule, but I said that the Cowboys had done everything that we had asked them to. And I maintain that stance. I stand by it because we have asked them to be mildly aggressive, selectively aggressive, if you want to use that parlance. We've asked them to acquire veterans by way of trade, to be creative about it. And they did those things. And look, there is still work to be done. And I heard all of you loud and clear who said that. And that's what we're here today to discuss. Today, we're looking at what is left, because I think we're one real big thing away from the Cowboys doing it, and the people who may be on the fence saying, all right, you know what? I do consider the offseason to be a success. I do consider this to be a lot of legitimate work now. I think that could have been Cooper Kupp. If the Cowboys had signed Cooper Kupp on top of everything that they've done, and once more, I'm not saying let's throw them a parade for being active in free agency, but if they had signed Cooper Kupp, I guarantee you that you would be grading this an A+. When in reality, it's kind of an A- already. But there's one thing out there that the Cowboys need to do, whether it's to earn your A+ grade or not. It's to extend Micah Parsons. This is our news roundup post over at bloggingtheboys.com from Wednesday, and we referenced the WFAA post. Shout out to Mike Leslie, of course, who noted that there are rumblings that the Cowboys and Micah Parsons might get a deal done. I'm going to read from it verbatim right here. The Dallas Cowboys and their all-pro pass rusher Micah Parsons have held discussions about a long-term contract extension, according to a source of knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. According to that source, Cowboys owner and general manager Jerry Jones called Parsons to the Star on Tuesday to discuss a potential deal in further detail. Now, if you are on social media, if you are on X, Twitter, etc., you know that there were some rumblings about Micah and a deal potentially being done, and people were kind of getting ahead of themselves, assuming that this was going to happen. It did not. It has not yet, at the very least, at the time of this discussion. But that is the thing. That is our kind of El Dorado at this point. If the Cowboys, I've been saying for forever, I referenced it in the last video, if the Cowboys had gotten a deal done by St. Patrick's Day, I would have celebrated. But if the Cowboys, the next kind of point I'll put out there, if the Cowboys get a Micah deal done before the NCAA tournament is over, I do think that it will be respectable. I do think that it will really indicate that they are taking things, seriously in a way that they haven't in the past. I wanted to put some fresh Micah quotes up on your screen, by the way. Shout out to John Michaud, friend of Blogging the Boys, friend of mine. This is John's tweet from today on Thursday, just in case you're watching this after the fact. Cowboys defensive end Micah Parsons is hosting a bowling event today in Frisco called Pins for Purpose. Good for Micah, by the way. That's very awesome. To benefit the Lionheart Foundation, several of his teammates, etc., are in attendance to show support. Now, John noted that he asked if talking about Micah here. Let me zoom in for you, and you can now see it. There we go. Machota asked if Micah is disappointed that he doesn't have a new contract from the Cowboys. Micah said no. And as he started to explain, a staff member said the interview would only include questions about the event. I think we all understand that sometimes these things get a little bit corporate. And obviously, the purpose of the event was charity. And so you don't want to take focus off of that. I do believe, I do buy, maybe is the better way to put it, that we are close. That's my own personal perception. That's not a report in any sort of way. I buy that there's some smoke building here because if we read through the tea leaves of the way the Cowboys have acted this offseason, and I understand that they have a lot of trust, they have all trust really to kind of earn back from you and from me and from the fan base as a whole. But they have been purposeful and they have been non-dramatic about it, right? The Osa Digizua deal got done without any real kind of conversation or random weird reporting back and forth stuff happening. Even the Cavante Turpin deal, and these are lower scale than what Micah Parsons is ultimately going to get. But those things happen pretty much in silence, right? Those things happened, in very non-traditional Dallas Cowboys ways. And that is impressive to me. Not impressive in the way the Eagles act is impressive, but impressive in that they're. When was the last time you knew the Cowboys to do anything in silence? When was the last time you knew the Cowboys to do anything without a show, without attention, without pomp and circumstance, without all the glitz and glamour that is associated with who they are? Yet that is how they have acted so far this offseason. And it would not shock me if and when this thing ultimately happens, if it's just kind of random, like if it's just on a Tuesday afternoon or something, it's like, oh, by the way, the Cowboys and Micah Parsons have agreed to a massive record-setting extension. He's now the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, et cetera, et cetera. Something that was predictable and obvious a year ago, which is why the Cowboys should have done it then. But if they get this done now, and if I know I threw out the end of the NCAA tournament, I'm still even willing to go farther. I'm willing to say if they get it done before the draft. I'm willing to say if they get it done before Mother's Day, before Father's Day, right? As long as this thing doesn't ripple into training camp, I will be mildly impressed. And the bar is low. I'm with you. I understand. But based on how they've acted so far, based on how they have behaved this offseason specifically, I kind of trust that it's going to get done. I recognize how silly that is to say out loud, but I kind of do trust that. And if the Cowboys get this done, on top of what they have done to this point in free agency, bringing in the veterans that they have, I know it's all cheap, Jags, 1-year deals, etc., all the former first-round picks, on top of the trades they made with their 2 compensatory picks, on top of landing 4 compensatory picks to give them 10 overall selections in the NFL draft. If they walk in to the NFL draft with all these positions replenished, at the very least from a quantitative standpoint, you can't disagree with that, even if you're super down on the offseason to this point. If they walk in with the stocks reshelved and with a Micah Parsons deal taken care of, obviously an Osa Digizua deal taken care of, in a perfect world, we'd go as far as saying a Deron Bland and a Tyler Smith deal taken care of as well. But at the very least, if the Micah deal is done, then dude, I mean, it will reflect some serious work done out of the star in Frisco, which hasn't necessarily been done for a very long time. So that's the main thing. I think that is the main thing that the Cowboys have to address for us to really clap, right? I mean, and it's kind of like you might be watching this on Friday or Saturday or Sunday. Obviously, your habits, however you are, whenever you have time. But like I said, I'm doing this live on Thursday, and today is the Severance season finale, right? And earlier on Thursday, when I was having lunch, I was talking to a friend. Like I said, I was being told that I sounded all nasally and whatnot. And we were talking about things that better happen, right, in the season finale. We all kind of go into, the season finale of certain shows, kind of shows that have been, nobody goes into the season finale of like, I don't know, Friends and is like, this better happen. Ross and Rachel better figure out if they were on a break. No, like we're talking, shows with legitimate plots, non-sitcoms, right? And we all did that with Game of Thrones, right? They better take care of this. They better tie up this loose end. They better, show us what all this development of this character was really all about. There better be some payoff. And I don't want to spoil Severance for anybody because I only recently caught up myself. But the non-spoiler version is there are several things that need to be addressed in this season finale. And if they're not, I'm going to have some words to say about this on the internet, on X, on Instagram, on Threads, at RJ Ochoa, on TikTok, RJ.Ochoa, right? You need to kind of take care of this for me to feel like a satisfied customer. And this is the main thing. This is the biggest plot point. This is the biggest character arc that the Cowboys have been developing for a very long time now. We need this resolution, this Micah Parsons extension before the NFL draft. And if that happens, okay, there are other things that we want tied up as well, but they have lower levels of priority. Now, what are those other things? I think there's one significant thing. Nothing is on the same level of significance as a Micah Parsons extension. And I already mentioned that extensions for Deron Bland and Tyler Smith would certainly be nice to have as well. If those happen, now we're really cooking with some gas here. If the Cowboys get all three or even two of them done, as long as one is Micah Parsons, then again, I think there's some legitimate cause for, dare I even say, celebration. But that being said, while the Cowboys have addressed a number of positions, at the very least, like you agreed, from a quantitative standpoint, the Cowboys also, have kind of not addressed one specific thing. They had need at linebacker. So what did they do? They signed Jack Sanborn. They traded for Kenneth Murray. They had a need at corner. What they do? They traded for Kaiir Elam. They had a need at pass rusher, obviously anticipating DeMarcus Lawrence leaving, maybe not anticipating DeMarcus Lawrence setting the team on fire, but they signed Peyton Turner. They obviously bring back Dante Fowler. They had a need at running back. They needed stable, legitimate NFL players at the running back position. So they signed Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. Great. There's still one position that they haven't totally, I would even say really addressed at all, which isn't necessarily literally true, but is sort of, effectively true. Now, the Cowboys did get a new deal done with Kevontae Turpin. He's a wide receiver in a technical sense. He's obviously a part of the offense. We can bicker or debate as to what his role on offense is outside of obviously his role on special teams. That is technically a move at the wide receiver position. The Cowboys also technically signed Paris Campbell. It's technically an addition to wide receiver. I don't mean to be bad vibes or negative or rainy cloud Eeyore type of guy, but I think that we all feel like that's probably the weakest move that they've made in free agency as a whole, and it's really the only new blood that they have at the wide receiver position. If you're just banking on Jalen Tolbert taking a step for the fourth year in a row, if you're banking on Ryan Flournoy being the guy or Jalen Brooks being the guy, because somebody has to be the guy opposite of CeeDee Lamb, then I don't think you're really hedging this bet. And we've seen the Cowboys hedge their bets in other positions. Like we said, bringing in multiple linebackers, multiple running backs, multiple edge rushers. And they need to sign a veteran wide receiver. Now, they might be wanting to wait until after the NFL draft. Maybe they're going to take T-Mac in the first round. Who knows? Out of the worst school in the world, Arizona. But that being said, these are the free agents who are still available. Shout out to our friends at Spotrac. Now, Stephon Diggs, on the day that we are talking again on Thursday, reportedly had a visit with the New England Patriots. I have thought, and if you have followed me for some time, you know this, I have thought for about 18 months now that Stephon Diggs was going to be a Cowboy this offseason. It just, everything was pointing in that direction. Now, maybe, by the way, the number you're looking at is his previous AAV, that's annual average value. So that's kind of the market that he's coming off of. I think it's safe to say that all of these values are suppressed for all of these wide receivers. That being said, I think Stephon Diggs coming off of the injury really changes the calculus on him. But obviously his brother Trayvon plays with the team, so I don't think you can rule that out. But any of these names will do. I don't mean to be dramatic or silly. Just about any of these names will do. You sign Stephon Diggs, I don't know that we really party about that. You sign Keenan Allen, dude, we are having a party. You sign Amari Cooper, holy crap. I mean, we're making our jokes, the obvious ones, but we're having a party. You bring Brandon Cooks back, I don't know that we're having a party, but it's, to use a Severance thing, like a music party, right? Like we just turn on a little bit of music and some lights and, we dance around a little bit. If you sign Deontay Johnson, maybe we have a conversation because that's probably the one you don't want to do on this whole list. If you sign Tyler Lockett, I do think that is probably the last name that represents the last carrot, the last name that you could bring in that everybody would freak out about. Now, look, he's obviously much older than most of these options. Keenan Allen's up there. Robert Woods is up there. Most of these players are hovering near 30. The youngest on the list that you're looking at is DJ Chark right here. But that being said, you bring in Tyler Lockett and his familiarity, his relationship with Brian Schottenheimer is well documented. He had some great seasons when Schotty was coordinating the offense in Seattle, the let Russ cook stuff, all that jazz. You bring in Tyler Lockett. Whoa. And I think that Tyler Lockett could give you what Brandon Cooks did. It's funny because he's obviously older than him, but you bring in Tyler Lockett, he could give you what Brandon Cooks did early on that 2022 season or 23 season. I'm already lost on my years. So Tyler Lockett represents something legit, but some of these options too, now we're getting a little bit tough here, but you bring in any of these names for the most part. I'll say we can get to 5, right? You bring in, I think, tier 1 for hype or would-be hype, incited hype is Keenan Allen and Tyler Lockett. Tier 2 is probably Amari Cooper and Brandon Cooks. Tier 3 is Stephon Diggs. That comes with a little bit of a qualifier because of the injury and whatnot, but I think people would get somewhat excited. I think if you're bringing in Nelson Aguilar, DJ Chark, or Josh Reynolds, I think people are just rolling their eyes. But there are still options here, and maybe the Cowboys are waiting. It is certainly not impossible based on how they have behaved in the past relative to a lot of different things, but this makes sense. If they take care of the Micah extension and they get one of the names that we have deemed to be, legitimate, workable, within range, somebody we would be comfortable with, somebody we would be mildly hyped about. Once again, the creme de la creme, so to speak, is Tyler Lockett and Keenan Allen, but we'll settle for Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper, Brandon Cooks. You do those two things, dude, we are really, I think, rightfully, fairly gonna praise you and say that you had a legitimate offseason. And I think it's fair to say, and I know that we do not want to give excuse me, the front office any kind of credit, and that is something that they are entirely at fault for, right? I'm not gonna sit here and act like they're these victims or anything like that. They've done it to themselves in terms of the way that people perceive them. But that being said, um, if you're the Dallas Cowboys front office and you're listening to this, if you're watching this, right? Because I know you guys are online, you're very online. Um, it it will not take a lot to get this fan base back. Now, I do believe that Cowboys fans are calloused in a way that they haven't been for some time. But you are demonstrating that you're willing to be a little different, right? You're demonstrating that you've grown and matured a little bit with how you're acting right now. And you will certainly have demonstrated if you get the Micah extension done, all the more if you get Blaine and Tyler Smith, as we mentioned. You bring in one of these wide receivers. If it's Tyler Lockett, dude, this is this is kind of a room full of kerosene, right? Like, people want to be hyped. I don't enjoy hating on the Cowboys. You don't enjoy hitting on the Cowboys, right? Like, you and I, we park our cars in the same garage on this, right? We're Cowboys fans. I would love more than anything to be delusionally optimistic about this team. I've been that before. You've been that before. I prefer to be that way, right? That's the fun of being a sports fan. We want to be irrationally but measured in objective, reality, optimistic, right? That's what we want. We want to say this is our year, but have real legitimate reason to believe that. And you've just kind of taken that away from us over the last few years, which is why we're so beaten down. That being said, that part of us is still alive. That part of us is still there. It may be deep, 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 deep down, but that part is still there. And you do these things, you get the Micah deal done, before the draft, before the end of the tournament, like I said, you get Tyler Lockett, dude, you will light a match inside this room of kerosene, and that fire, it may not burn as bright as it ever has, in our hearts, but you will rope a lot of people back. And maybe it's not, maybe that's not something you care about, front office. Maybe roping people back or bringing, attention back to the team in a positive way isn't among your chief priorities. I think it should be in a general sense, but maybe you feel like you can just make your bank either way. But my point is that people want to believe so badly that you don't even have to do all of these things to get people back. I mean, look, I stand by everything I've said in terms of how I've evaluated this offseason. I believe the Cowboys have made some mildly positive steps, and I believe that, that is cause for giving them their fair props, not these massive props or anything like that. But that being said, this is more fun, right? It's more fun to say these things are legitimate as opposed to the, quicksand we were stuck in this time a year ago. This time a year ago, all the Cowboys had done was bring in Eric Kendricks. And they were already talking about bringing back Ezekiel Elliott after the draft. I mean, that was it. It was just continued daily chaos and dysfunction around this team this time a year ago. You may be down on them right now. You may not be a believer in the decisions they've made and the free agents, the Jags, the former first-round picks who they've brought in, but you cannot tell me that this is worse than it was last year. There's no question that 2024 will go down in the books as one of maybe the most toxic seasons in Dallas Cowboys franchise history in terms of how the front office manipulated that narrative almost on a daily basis, certainly on a weekly and a monthly one. That being said, we're not quite Andy Dufresne outside of the tunnel in the rain or anything like that, but maybe we're like in the walls, when he's like breaking the tunnel and he's waiting on the thunder strikes for his moment. Like we're on the path. Maybe not even like in the literal path, but we're on the general path to freedom. Excuse me. To getting out of this place. So those are the two main things. Now, if we get down to, okay, we've done the big things. Everyone is hyped. There's a fire burning in people once again. What are the other things that we have to take care of if we're just examining, if we're trying to get every single duck in a row? Because it kind of seems like that's what the Cowboys are doing here. I think that it's worth mentioning at this point. It isn't of critical mass, high level priority the way these other things are, but the Cowboys need a backup quarterback. I love Will Greer. He's awesome. He's amazing. He may, be a serviceable QB2. I think it's pretty safe to assume the Cowboys are going to throw a day 3 pick at the position. That would be smart. That would be fine. I'd be down for that. I think we'd all be down with that. It's always fun to see what the project can be like. I think Brian Schottenheimer deserves to have his chance. Give him his version of Ben DiNucci, so to speak. That being said, I think it would be worthwhile for the Cowboys to check out the veteran free agent market at the quarterback position. Once again, shout out to Spotrac. These are the people who are currently on the market. Now, as you can see here, this is sorted by previous previous AAV, which is why Trey Lance is so high. He was a former first-round pick. He's coming off of that third overall selection rookie quarterback contract, which is why he's so high. We can safely assume that Aaron Rodgers is not going to be a Cowboy, Trey Lance, whatever. My favorite type of archetype when it comes to backup quarterbacks is the dude who is young enough to still have some tread left on the tire, obviously, but who has seen some things, who has started in the NFL, so that if you have to throw him in, if he has to come in a moment's notice, he's not completely and totally unfazed. For that reason, I loved when the Cowboys signed Andy Dalton 5 years ago. He fit that archetype perfectly. I loved when the Philadelphia Eagles a couple of years ago got Gardner Minshew. I think Kenny Pickett was a great example of that. Like a guy who's young enough, who's still moldable, who you can still kind of maybe find what people saw in them, that has some starts in the NFL. So again, if they do have to make a random start against the New York Giants or whatever, they're not completely and totally in foreign territory the way that the aforementioned Ben DiNucci was in that 2020 season when everything got so wonky for the team. Now, I don't want to see the Cowboys bring Trey Lance back. I wish him all the luck in the world. But if we're looking at options like this, I mean, I kind of like I recognize that, look, I'm not telling you, oh, this is the name to watch out for. This is the name to really pay attention to. The names that fit my archetype. I like the idea of Desmond Ridder. I think that that's an interesting option. You're talking about somebody who's very young, somebody who isn't far removed, obviously, from the beginning of their NFL career, somebody who's been obviously across, a couple of different places at this point in time now. I mean, obviously would be cheap. This is his previous salary, as mentioned. But that being said, this is the archetype I like. All these other players are a little bit older. Like, I don't want to go down the Joe Flacco route or anything like that. Even Drew Lock, I think that Drew Lock fits that mold as well. A little bit older, but again, has some starting experience, would not be phased by the big lights, even if you go back to his collegiate days. I mean, somebody who has played some big football games, some football games of significance. And if, let's just assume it were Drew Lock here. If Dak Prescott had to miss a game, comes in as a pinch hitter and everything's perfect. Again, even if it's, a Sunday night football game or something like that, Drew Lock has been there and done that and would not be shocked by the moment. That's my archetype. I don't want anything to do with these older players. I don't want anything, like I said, I don't want Joe Flacco. I don't want Jameis Winston. Don't want Case Keenum, Teddy Bridgewater. Russell Wilson, obviously, is a different sort of case study. I want the young dude because I want 3 quarterbacks. I want my stable veteran, who's my franchise quarterback, and Dak Prescott. I want this archetype that we're talking about. And then I want the puppy. I want the brand new guy, the rookie, the draft pick, the one that's being groomed, etc. That's what your quarterback room should look like. And so if you told me, 6 months from now, the Cowboys quarterback room consisted of Dak Prescott, a rookie TBD, and one of Drew Lock or Desmond Ridder, I'd be pretty happy. And again, that's not saying like, oh, watch out, this quarterback room is winning the Super Bowl. But that's saying they have checked all of the boxes. They are accounting for different ideas, different potentials, different hypotheticals, different would-be circumstances. That's the way you go about things. You're forward thinking. That's what I want to see from the Cowboys. I think that's what we all want to see from the Cowboys. And that's what, quite frankly, we deserve to see from the Cowboys. So hopefully it happens. Now, what if these things don't happen? I think that's the last question that we have to tackle, right? I don't think it's I think in the past, I would have said that not getting a Micah extension done was a failure. And I do feel that way, obviously. But that would be concerning. The wide receiver thing, you don't go get Tyler Lockett or whatever. That's not the biggest deal. I would advise that you go out and do that. You don't go get a backup quarterback, a Drew Lock, a Desmond Ritter. Fine. That's not going to, end the world here. But the Micah thing, everything hinges on this, right? This truly is kind of a fork in the road. Because if you go down the path that you went with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, Dak didn't hold out. And I don't know if Micah would hold out, right? He's obviously said a lot of things. We'll see, what ultimately comes to pass. But if you go down that route, and if you let this be a daily discussion point, it hasn't been a daily thing quite yet because you've been distracting us with all this other stuff. Like, ooh, check it out. Here's Solomon Thomas, right? But if you go down this path where you're just stirring the pot, it's not going to end well. And you're really this little match opportunity that you have of people in their hearts ready to kind of jump back in a little bit, you're really going to extinguish that. You're really going to put it out. You're really going to snuff that torch. You're going to be Jeff Probst here. All right. But you can't do that. You simply cannot. This is a massive, massive, massive critical level, foundational level decision for the Dallas Cowboys. And that's why get it done ASAP. Get it done so it's not a thing. Get it done so everybody can celebrate. Get it done so everybody can say you're awesome, so you can pat yourselves on the back, so you can feel really good about doing the super easy and obvious thing and paying one of the best players in the NFL money commensurate with his worth, which is obviously, top dollar market rate. That's what Micah Parsons has proven to be worth through 4 years of his NFL career. Could you have done it last year? Would it have been wise? Would it have been proactive? Absolutely. We're still going to be upset about that. But hopefully you learned your lesson. And hopefully after getting this Micah deal done, which is a critical mass thing that has to be done, hopefully you apply that logic to DaRon Bland and to Tyler Smith, because you do not want to be in a situation where a year from now you've decided to hypothetically move on from Trayvon Diggs and you need DaRon Bland. And so now you're paying top dollar for him. And even then, hypothetically, I think we all think the Cowboys are not going to pick up the 5th-year option on Kaiir Elam. Well, okay. Then what if he balls out for you, right? Like what if in a hypothetical world they were super right about the trade for Kaiir Elam? He plays amazing. And now next offseason, both Kaiir Elam and DaRon Bland are up for new contracts. And let's, again, in this weird hypothetical, assume they don't want Trayvon Diggs back. Take care of future problems. That is ultimately kind of the disposition behind what we're talking about here. That's why we want you to have another wide receiver. That's why we want you to have an able quarterback. That's why we want you to obviously not be chasing the Micah Parsons extension. Think ahead. You can't be even 5 steps ahead because the Eagles were 5 steps ahead 2 years ago. You can't be 10 steps ahead because the Chiefs were 10 steps ahead last week. You have to be so far ahead that you have no work to do. And that's impossible. All right. It is a daily grind. And lately, you have shown that you might be up for that task. Lately, you have shown that might be the business that you are about. I think that we're all kind of still out as a jury on whether or not that's the case. And I don't think any of us really buy that. But you at least are making us think. You at least are making us reconsider just a little bit. So do this, and we'll do so to a larger degree. Do this, and we'll consider so to a significant degree. That's what we're asking at this point in time. It's quite simple. We've laid out the list. It's a to-do sort of thing. Just check them off. You've already done some good things. Well done. We clapped for you. But the clapping doesn't mean the job is over. Like we said, you got to keep going. You got to keep your foot on the gas. You got to keep pressing. You got to keep working. It never, ever, ever stops. We don't ever stop thinking about it, so we don't expect you to ever stop thinking about it, Dallas Cowboys. So, my name, in case you didn't know, in case you forgot, is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on X, on Instagram, on Threads at RJ Ochoa. I am also on TikTok at rj.ochoa. If email is more your thing, I am rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you can leave a comment down below, and I will do my very best to get to those as well. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Got videos coming out all the time. In fact, shout out to Bleach Report, obviously, where we're live, and you can follow me in the Bleach Report app right down below as well. See all the teams that I root for. But if you are watching on YouTube, or even if you're not, it's the off season. So sometimes, sometimes we make a weird turn. We had an interview with Ian Eagle and Clark Kellogg on Wednesday, and it was super cool. It was awesome. It was amazing to be a part of, and got kind of a weird interview like that. Weird is in not normal for us, not the subject matter is weird. Just to be clear, Chet Holmgren of the Oklahoma City Thunder stopped by. We got to talk about his commercial with his Thunder teammates. I told him I was a Spurs fan. I was straight up about it. I'm not going to run from it, not going to hide. You would know I'm a Spurs fan, by the way, if you follow me in the Bleacher Report app. But that being said, the Chet Holmgren interview drops on Friday. So this week offered videos on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel, which is just another reason to subscribe. like we preach to the Dallas Cowboys, the work never stops. It's 24/7, 365 around here. Even though I'm still kind of catching up from the time change. I can't believe how much jumping forward 1 hour has kind of wrecked my brain. But who knows? Either way, thank you everybody for hanging out. I hope your brackets survive. I hope everything goes well for you, and I hope, like me, you have Florida winning it all. Thanks so much for hanging out, and yeah, we'll see you next time.